Pastel fluids definitely look good in your system, but they can certainly wreak havoc, especially if they've been running for 2 years, like my parts from Skunkworks. So today I'm gonna show you kind of my tips and tricks on how to clean the blocks, especially clear blocks like this, so that they can look almost brand new, almost. Also too, a reminder that our new fall line of merch is now available. I'm wearing my new Tri-Blend shirt with the Digress logo, which is much smaller and a lot less kapow on your shirt and more like kaping over here. So you guys can find the link down in the description below. Got hoodies, zip ups, all that sort of stuff. Pullovers, beanies, mugs. There's even some lady shirts down there for your lady friends. So part of upgrading your system usually means you have some old parts and stuff to deal with. Now, although these are the first Titan X Pascal version cards that came out, and there was a new Titan X after that, and then obviously we've got RTX 2080 Ti and all that stuff, these parts are no slouch and I want to keep them in tip-top shape. And because they are clear blocks and we've been using pastel, these particular parts have had pastel running in them for over 2 years. It's important to keep them clean. So that's what we're gonna do today. I kind of have a method that I sort of came up with over all the years of how to clean this out. Most companies would have you believe that just running some sort of a solvent, whether it be like Primo Chill System Prep or it be the Mayhem's Blitz Kit, is enough to keep it clean. But if you get in there and look tight at the jet flow plate right there, you can see that there is a little bit of buildup. Not much, it's actually really, really good for 2 years. You can see that there's not any discoloration really up the block, but you can see there's some buildup in the jet plate. You can see there's some buildup on the threads. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna disassemble it. I'm gonna show you some of my best tips and tricks on how to clean this and keep it looking new, because the longer you wait and the more this dries out, the harder it's going to be to clean. So you can obviously get blocks in a lot of different styles. This happens to be the nickel plexi, so you can see through to the nickel plated copper base. You can also get it with copper and clear. You can get it with copper and acetal, which is just a black cover. You can get it with copper and, or nickel and acetal. So all these different variations. Now in the past, you could just undo these perimeter screws right here and take the front off or the clear plate off. But in this case, you can't, because you can see there's a screw there and there's a screw there, which is helping hold the block onto the PCB, which means we're gonna have to take off the back plate as well. Obviously you can see my back plate's pretty dirty, so we're gonna be cleaning that up as well. So for this version, we have to go ahead and take off the back plate, which really kind of sucks. I don't wanna have to do that, but fortunately it's just some Phillip head screws. There we go. Okay, so this screw right here is the other one that we have to get off. And boom. Okay, so now we can go ahead and take off our perimeter screws right here for the block. Now most block manufacturers, whether it be EK, XSPC, Bits Power, Vantex, they usually include the right Allen screw or Allen key that you need to undo this. Obviously I'm using my iFixit kit because I like this little screwdriver handle. We're also gonna loosen up these 3 screws, which I kind of already did, on the, I don't know what they call this piece right here. Terminal? I guess so, yeah, I guess it's terminal. There's tiny O-rings in here that are really kind of a bitch to deal with, and I don't want to take those off if I don't have to. This is technically the first block from EK I've ever disassembled where you had to take the backplate off. Normally, the block cover itself doesn't share screws with anything that passes through the PCB, so this is kind of a first. There's still a little bit of fluid in there, as you can see, but because the O-ring just goes around the perimeter, and nothing on the inside, you'll see a little bit of discoloration where it sort of gets in between the metal and the plexi. And as we take that off and hold it up, you can still see there's a little bit of buildup, a little bit of dirt right there. The funny part is that built up on both blocks identically. I don't know what that is, but it's there. All right, we'll come back to the plexi. I'm not licking it. You tell me what to do. I'm gonna lay out some blue towel right here, and we are going to go ahead and gently remove the O-ring, just like that. And as you can see, it is the proper shape, so it'll be a lot easier to put back in when it's time. Here's the flow plate right there. This is what sort of forces the fluid down to the hottest part of the core, and then obviously that is our core, and the fluid feels kind of, it's a little bit of that leftover Primo Chill System Prep, which I use, which by the way, if you follow on Twitter, you'd see the before and after. It did a really good job at getting the green out, but as you can see now, we've got to actually clean the metal. Now this is where my super secret weapon comes in. But again, it's not that secret because I've already showed it before, but people keep asking me, so apparently the information hasn't gotten out, which means I keep a really good secret, although I'm sharing it with 1.7 million people. I digress. It is Crest 3D white and a toothbrush. This I have used on different materials, including bare copper. I've used it on the nickel, and sometimes the nickel can turn sort of a golden, kind of a tarnished color. This removes it very, very well. And I've used it on copper, and it takes off that bluing or that bluish kind of a purpley color that the copper turns when it starts to oxidize. This stuff is amazing. I figure if it's good enough for your gentle teeth and your enamel, it's good enough for the blocks. And I've been using it ever since, and it does a fantastic job. So I have a little bit of distilled water here in the container, and we are going to get our toothbrush in the container of water, apparently. And then we are going to take our toothpaste, and we are going to put a little bit right there, a little bit there, there, wherever you feel like putting it. And we are going to just let the bristles do their job. But you saw what it looked like beforehand, and you'll see what it looks like after. It's gonna look like a new block. This is gonna slightly polish it. The reason for that is the Crest 3D White has these little crystals in there, which are slightly abrasive. Not enough to hurt anything. Certainly not enough to go through the nickel plating, but certainly enough to go through anything that's sort of built up on the block. And it smells nice. It smells minty fresh. Now, if you're not comfortable working around an open PCB like this, you can take it completely off of the card. I just don't feel like doing that. I don't feel like having to reapply my thermal paste and all that stuff. So after a little bit of elbow grease, distilled water, and some Crest 3D White, that's what it looks like. So not bad. Not bad at all. Now, obviously, we're not going to use the Crest 3D White and the toothbrush on the plexi because, as I mentioned, slightly abrasive, and we don't want to scratch it up. But as you can see, it definitely has some discoloration, kind of where the O-ring grooves are. So we're going to try and get that out. We're just going to use a blue towel and distilled water, and probably even a little bit of my Greenworks multi-surface cleaner. If you've ever talked to a professional of anything, a mechanic, carpenter, they've all got their crazy homebrew life hack methods of doing things that they've just found work over the years. And that's kind of what this is for me. And there's probably better ways to do this, but I haven't personally found it. And I have been doing this for years, and I've had no adverse effects, at least that I know of. And I'm happy with the results. So just a little bit of that, as you can see, has already taken away the discoloration that was forming in the edges right there. And it doesn't look like we actually have any staining of the block because we were running UV green in this, and this is a UV flashlight. And if I shine it at the table, I'm sure we can find a spot. It's glowing green because I have spilled fluid on this. Oh, look at my finger, see? Because I've touched the bottle that got on there just from the bottle. That's what that is, I swear. It's from that. Right there, that. And one thing you want to remember though is that these blocks do have machine marks in them as well, these covers. So as you kind of look through it from that perspective, you can see it looks just a little bit dull in there. And a couple of reasons why. One, there are machine marks that are in that. It's not perfect. Two, where the fluid constantly travels can actually sort of etch the block a little bit, and that's what that could be. But what I'm gonna do now for the front side is I'm gonna use a microfiber or something soft, a cotton towel, something that's not going to scratch it because we want to clean it as best we can. You don't wanna get any fingerprints on the underside because that will show. And as it's down on your block like that, obviously you're not gonna be able to clean it as it's against the graphics card. Now I've decided I'm gonna go ahead and take off the terminal here because these fittings or these threads are pretty dirty in there, and I just cleaned this guy so I don't feel like having it more water run down it and then have to clean that plexi again. What I wanna show you here real quick is just how tiny these O-rings are right here. That's how thin it's actually squishing down for the flow. So that's why water blocks can definitely, if you stack up a bunch of water blocks in series, why you reduce pressure on your entire water cooling loop, because it squishes down to go through the jet plate, it squishes down to go through here, it squishes down to go through the radiators. But for cleaning this, I'm gonna do just like I did with the O-ring actually. I'm gonna go ahead and submerge the entire thing in there so that it can sort of soak those rings. And then we'll take our toothbrush and sort of work it in there. So before we put it back together, I'm gonna clean these 3 thread holes right here. And as you can see, they're just dirty. I don't know how these get dirty. Actually, fluid doesn't even go into those because they're sealed off here, but they get dirty nonetheless. And this is where our 3D white comes in handy once again. It's actually pretty interesting how I do this. So I just put a little bit right there, some in there, and then we'll put some in there eventually. So I take the screw now. This is the screw that goes in it right there. Get it wet, and then literally just thread it. You can actually hear it. Do you hear the abrasive crystals? Listen. And as you thread it down, and then thread it back out, and as you do this back and forth, you actually will clean those threads out of any dirt and debris that's sitting in there. So after just one pass, that's what it looks like. Normally I'll do it 2 or 3 times just to get as much out as possible, but as you can see, that method clearly cleans out the threads because the crystals fill in the gap, and then as you turn the screw and back it out, it pulls the dirt out of the hole. All right, so putting it back together is pretty simple. It's just the reverse order of which you took it apart. I know that's always kind of a cop out on the manuals when they're like, oh, just put it back together in the reverse orders. Like you start going backwards in the manual, but double check everything. Don't over tighten anything. These pieces are plastic and they will crack and break, and that will ruin your day. Trust me. Ask me how I know.
How do you know?
Because I've cracked plastic before. Now when I put the blocks back together, I like to kind of just do the opposite corners first to hold it down. As I'm doing that, I'm making sure the O-ring stayed in its channel. It didn't pop out or anything. The O-ring is creating a seal, not necessarily the tightness of the screws. So just finger tight. Just finger tight. If you grip on the screwdriver and then wrench it, you are over tightening. So now I'm gonna put my back plate back on, and after the back plate is on, then I'm gonna clean it. Otherwise, I'd probably get it dirty again. So spray your cleaner directly on your rag, not on the back plate, because there's no reason to spray it directly on the card. And it's gonna take a little bit to get this guy clean. It's gonna take a couple passes, but you get the general idea. So as you can see, there's a pretty big difference between before and after. And remember, that's after 3 days worth of a system flush running, which got a majority of it out anyway. But as you can see, the heavy particles can definitely stick and be stubborn. Now, if you have any sort of buildup in your blocks, you can definitely start affecting temperatures, you can affect flow rate, and whether or not you can see in your block, like having a clear top like this, doesn't matter, because just because you drop your card on the table, it's fine, I swear, they're durable. I got the durable versions when I bought them. But whether or not you're running a clear see-through block or a solid top doesn't change the fact that this is happening inside of your systems. You need to clean it out because it'll affect temperatures, it will affect flow, and that is bad for any system. And obviously, if you're gonna be disassembling your system and putting away your parts and storing them or reselling them, this is something you need to do, because the longer it sits and the more it solidifies, the harder and less likely it is to come clean. So that's how I do it. I'm gonna do it now on this other block and my CPU block. These are parts from Skunkworks, and I have plans for these. So we're gonna go ahead and get out of here, finish this up, and hopefully you guys have found this video helpful. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, we'll see you in the next one. And don't forget, new shirts are available. Just not this one, because I'm wearing it. It's mine. I don't think anyone wants to buy my old sweaty shirt. You hit the table, Phil. Amateur cameraman.
I know. All right, hold on, reset.
This is actually 1 liter of alien sperm.
And action.
Buy my shit. Because I've got the nickel back plate on there, I think
Nickelback plate?
Nickelback.
Plate?
Nickelback plate. On the plexi. Plexi.